The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Webb sat in the cramped HR office, his calloused hands folded in his lap. At 42, he looked older, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. His daughter's medical bills were stacked in his truck like a tower of impossible dreams, and this janitor position at Sacred Heart Hospital was his last shot at keeping their small apartment. He'd already pawned his wedding ring, sold his tools, and worked 3 jobs that barely covered Emma's medications. Now, as he filled out the application with hands that trembled slightly, he didn't notice the HR manager, Patricia Chen, watching him with more than professional interest, ***. Marcus had been filling out job applications for 6 months straight, each rejection another crack in his already fragile hope. This one felt different, though. Sacred Heart was where Emma received her treatments, where nurses knew her by name and always snuck her extra juice boxes. Working here would mean being close to her, understanding the world that had become her entire existence since the diagnosis. "Mr. Webb?" Patricia's voice cut through his thoughts. "I see you've left the previous employment section mostly blank for the past year." He swallowed hard, preparing for the usual explanations that never seemed good enough. "I've been my daughter's primary caregiver. She has leukemia. Stage 3. I've been taking her to appointments, managing her care." His voice cracked slightly. He hated how vulnerable the truth made him sound. Patricia nodded, her expression unreadable. "And her mother? Died in childbirth complications when Emma was born. Always been just the 2 of us." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her Emma's picture without being asked. A 8-year-old girl with a bald head and the biggest smile you'd ever seen, holding up a peace sign. "She's the fighter. I'm just trying to keep up." What Marcus didn't tell her was about the previous night, when Emma had cried because she wanted to go to school like normal kids. Or how he'd sat in his truck afterward, allowing himself exactly 5 minutes to break down before putting on his brave face again. Or how he'd been secretly sleeping in the hospital parking lot on nights when Emma's numbers were bad, just to be close if something happened. Patricia made notes on her tablet, and Marcus felt the familiar sinking feeling. He'd seen this before, the sympathetic look that preceded the gentle rejection. Too much baggage. Too unreliable. Too much of a liability. "The position starts at $14 an hour, Patricia said, still studying her screen. "Night shift, 4 days a week." Marcus straightened. "That would be perfect. My neighbor can stay with Emma at night, and I'd be here if..." He stopped himself. He'd almost said "if something goes wrong," but speaking those words felt like inviting disaster. "Let me get some information from you for our records," Patricia continued, pulling up a new form. "Have you ever been a patient here at Sacred Heart?" "No, ma'am. Just Emma. She's been here more times than I can count." "And her patient ID number?" "We offer reduced parking rates for family members of long-term patients." Marcus fumbled for his wallet, pulling out a worn hospital wristband he kept with Emma's information. His hands were shaking now. He'd been up for 36 hours straight, working a delivery gig until dawn. "It's A3497. They gave her this permanent ID when she started her treatment plan." The moment the numbers left his mouth, Patricia's fingers froze over her keyboard. Her face went completely white, as if she'd seen a ghost walk through the office door. She looked up at Marcus, then down at her screen, then back at Marcus again. "A3497? Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, ma'am. Is something wrong?" Patricia stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. "Excuse me for just one moment." She walked out of the office, leaving Marcus sitting there with his heart pounding. He'd blown it somehow. Maybe they had a policy against hiring parents of patients. Maybe it was a conflict of interest. Maybe. The door opened, but it wasn't Patricia who walked in. It was Dr. Michael Reeves, the hospital's chief of medicine, a man Marcus had only seen from a distance during Emma's treatments. He was in his early 60s, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. Mr. Webb, Dr. Reeves said, his voice thick with emotion. Patricia showed me your application. Your daughter is Emma Webb. Patient A3497. Marcus stood, instinctively defensive. If there's a problem with me working here while she's being treated, I understand, but... 3 months ago, Dr. Reeves interrupted, I received an anonymous letter in my office mail. Inside was $50,000 in cash. No name. No return address. Just a note that said, for Emma Webb, patient A3497. She deserves every chance to see tomorrow. The room tilted. Marcus grabbed the edge of the desk. We've been trying to track down the donor ever since, Dr. Reeves continued. That money covered Emma's treatments when her insurance denied the new protocol. It saved her life, Mr. Webb. The trial medication she's on, the one that's working, we could only give it to her because of that donation. Marcus couldn't breathe. His mind raced back 3 months. He'd worked a construction job, 16-hour days for 3 weeks straight. He'd delivered pizzas every night. He'd sold everything he owned of value, his father's vintage guitar, his truck that actually ran well, his late wife's jewelry collection he'd been saving for Emma. He'd lived on ramen and slept in his car. He'd gathered $50,000 exactly and sent it anonymously because he'd been terrified the hospital would refuse it if they knew it came from him, a desperate father who'd liquidated his entire life. That was you, Dr. Reeves said, his eyes glistening. You somehow scraped together $50,000 to save your own daughter and send it anonymously so we wouldn't question it. Patricia returned, her own eyes red. Marcus, when you sent that money, did you have anything left? He shook his head, unable to speak. You made yourself destitute to save her, Dr. Reeves said. And now you're here, applying for a janitor position at the hospital where that money is keeping your daughter alive. I'd do it again, Marcus finally managed. 1,000 times over. Dr. Reeves pulled out his phone, making a call. Linda? It's Michael. I need you to access the Physician Housing Fund. Yes. Full authorization. I'll explain later. He turned back to Marcus. We're not hiring you as a janitor. We're hiring you as a hospital facilities coordinator. It's essentially overseeing our maintenance team. It pays $62,000 a year with full benefits, including complete medical coverage for dependents. Marcus couldn't process the words. They sounded like a foreign language. And, Patricia added, there's a family apartment on the hospital campus for essential staff with medical situations. You and Emma can live there. No rent. Why? Marcus whispered. Why would you do this? Because 3 months ago, a father taught this entire hospital what sacrifice really means, Dr. Reeves said. You gave everything. Now let us give something back. Marcus finally broke, tears streaming down his face. I just wanted her to live. She is living, Patricia said gently. And now you can really live too. 6 months later, Marcus watched Emma ring the bell in the pediatric oncology ward, the bell patients ring when they complete treatment. Her hair was growing back in soft brown curls. She was going to school. She was laughing. She was alive. And Marcus had learned that sometimes, when you give everything you have without expecting anything in return, the universe finds a way to catch you before you fall. Not because you deserve it, but because kindness recognizes kindness, and humanity still exists in the spaces between our darkest moments.